Okay, so I'll give a really quick recap of my last talk, and then we can kind of get into the tooling and AI and sort of go to market decisions that all of you will be making as you grow. So just a quick recap of the last one, we spoke about getting to 1 million in ARR. It's a really important milestone. It's kind of seen as a as an inflection point when you go from experimenting and taking a whole bunch of risks and trying things and understanding that many of the things you try probably won't work, but a few of them will. Once you get to 1 million, you're kind of, you can start to scale things. You'll see some patterns. You'll start to look for efficiencies. And I think the biggest way to sum it up is that you're going to survive. So your runway is less meaningful. It's not like you're going to hit the end of the runway if you're at 1 million. You can always survive. So you can keep a skeleton staff and keep going. You can cover your payroll expenses. You can cover operating expenses for basic functionality. And most VCs see that as a really big indicator that, hey, this is viable. There's real people using it. They're spending real money. So it's really, really kind of a big, important milestone. The chapters that we went through on the last one are right here. So it's more of a sort of mindset definition. So when you're pre-revenue, when you haven't gotten your first dollar yet, there's a certain mindset. When you're getting to your first 100K of revenue, there's a different mindset. When you're getting to your first 300K of revenue, usually, and these are not exact, but I tend to have seen over the hundreds or so companies that we've worked with that these are pretty consistent. And then when you're getting from a couple 100K up to 1 million, there's a different mindset. And this is why it's so hard. There's a quote that I just heard that I really like. And it says that 0 to 1 million is art, and 1 million to 100 million is math. And so, as we sort of talk about the tooling and the tactics and the methods, I want you guys to think about that. You almost need like this is why it's hard to be a founder CEO. You almost need a different personality type for this first chapter, the second chapter, third chapter, and the fourth chapter. And I've kind of summarized what the sort of headspace is for them. When you're pre-revenue, you're trying to figure out if this is worth anything at all. And if you can get a complete stranger to spend their hard-earned money on what you're doing. One really important caveat that I put in front of all of these is that I'm only counting dollars from strangers. I don't count dollars from your friend, your uncle, your former boss, your buddies or whatever. Like, I try to discredit that completely. You're looking for someone who doesn't care if you live or die. They have money that they want to keep, but they're going to spend it because you can help them do something, and they're not rooting for you really. They're trying to get their own problems solved. So the first chapter is, can you get anyone to pay money for it? Second chapter is there a way that you can sell it with any kind of consistency? So is it something that you can go out and sell? And then the next chapter to get to 300K is really around starting to see what you can turn into a repeatable process. And then, from there, it's more about scaling the abilities of other people and getting away from founder and CEO-led sales. And the big challenge to get to 1 million, in my view, is can people other than the CEO and even other than a founder sell the product on their own? And that's really the key to unlocking 1 million and then beyond. And if you can do that, you're in a good spot and you can scale usually. The big thing I'll also add, because I know a lot of you guys are raising early stage money, the 300K mark is a really interesting one to VCs. So VCs usually, anything below 300K, they still count it. It means that you have some dollars and it's meaningful. But I even found when I was pitching, I just raised a C round a couple of years ago. I raised a $4 million seed round, and even verbally, they won't sort of make it official, but verbally, they'll tell me that they look for 300K in the seed level or pre-seed level as a big validation point, because if you can get to 300, chances are you can get to 1 million, and so on. So that's kind of an important thing to note. Okay, so anyway, so those are the chapters. So when we're talking about sales and getting to your revenue milestones, there's a whole bunch of tools that are important to have. Some of them are AI forward, and some of them are pretty basic. Everyone thinks that you should be able to do everything with AI now. That's very much not the case. There's a whole lot of just basic functionality that you need that doesn't have anything to do with AI. But you can start to work it into your work and use it to accelerate certain things. So I'll go through these just in terms of categories. And I'm actually going to start with this top middle one, the lead data one. So at the very sort of basic level, when you're running an early company and you're trying to get your first couple dollars and your first couple customers, the biggest and hardest question usually is, who cares? And who can I approach and how? And how can I do it in a way to get them to even just pay attention to me? Like, it's really hard to get a complete stranger to pay attention to another complete stranger at scale. It's really, that's like the hardest thing in all of early business. So I'm going to start here. You are going to want a solid foundation of data that you can use. These are some tools that we've used heavily. So we use ZoomInfo, we've used Apollo, we use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, which is probably the cheapest of all of them. I think it's like it's like $50 a month or something like that. There's G2, Capterra. There's other new ones like Clay. There's a new one that I work very closely with called Cred. But the core thing here is, and this is even before we talk about AI at all, how do you solve that question of who cares and how do you get in touch with them? And these databases have vast amounts of data on buyers, and lets you filter and look at what they want, what their tendencies are, what type of company they're at, what their title is. Some of the new ones are even more powerful. So Cred, where I work, is cutting edge in that they have probably 10x the amount of data points than most of these other ones do. So they can even look at where you went to high school, what tools you like, even what you follow on social. So like, hey, are you a soccer fan or a baseball fan, or do you like music, or do you like this, or do you like that? And you can really build incredibly powerful targeted lists with contact information that you can then go and make phone calls to and send emails to and invite to events and invite to demos and things like that. So we'll just start, we'll sort of go through these. ZoomInfo is probably the big bad gold standard out there. They're a giant company. They've been doing this for a very long time. They are starting to get into the AI world and having some more value add elements to their data. So you can see things like intent. You can see where people, chose to do certain things. Like maybe somebody just moved careers and went to a different place and they're looking for new types of tools. If you're selling into businesses, that can be really powerful. Like let's say you sell, I don't know, HR software or something like that. If they just moved and they're the head of HR, they're probably going to look through all the tools that we're using for HR and make some choices and maybe even change vendors, which is an opportunity for a new company to get in. Apollo is decent. They started out as being this all-in-one suite where you can also send email sequences. That's becoming less of a differentiator now. Their data is decent. It's not bad. They have a lot of emails and phone numbers and things like that. That's great. I find for early stage stuff, LinkedIn Sales Navigator is kind of a good starting point. LinkedIn is pretty vibrant and you can get a lot of good exposure through LinkedIn. We use it quite a lot. There are some AI tools that work, but the thing with LinkedIn, it's a bit of a bloodbath. So for many years, we've been using it heavily for like 10, 12 years. There's generation after generation of bots and AI tools and things that automate your LinkedIn work. And usually what we found is that they work extremely well for some period of time. So they might work well for a year or half a year or sometimes even a year and a half. But inevitably, they will get flagged and taken down. And it's really scary because they'll also flag your account. So it's not like that's a personal asset, right? Like that's not even a company thing. They're going to take, like Andrew, my account's been flagged and put in jail like a dozen times because I've used bots and I've used AI and automation on my LinkedIn. And don't get me wrong, it's been extremely powerful. Like we got a ton of business for years, but we always knew that eventually it would get stopped and we would have to try a new tool, and then we'd have to try a new tool and a new tool. And each time you are risking your own personal LinkedIn brand and your own LinkedIn account. It'll get frozen for a week. It's very scary. Sometimes it'll get frozen for more. Usually if you have the premium account, the Sales Navigator account, they'll be a little bit more forgiving and you can say, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, blah, 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 and they'll kind of let you back in. But that's definitely like a powerful channel. You just kind of have to be a little careful. There's one tool that we use very heavily. We're actually investors in them on LinkedIn. It's called Valley. You can see them down in the AI toolkit. That is a AI-based agent that can help you do really targeted outreach and messaging on LinkedIn, and you can get really granular. So you can look at like who's liked certain posts or who follows certain speakers or who's commented on some company's thread or something like that. You can get really granular, and then it has an AI agent that'll reach out as you and say, hey, we noticed you like XYZ. Would love to set up a demo or love to have a conversation, something like that. Valley seems to be the one so far that is doing well and hasn't been put in jail for quite a while. So they're really kind of a lot more careful with how they interact with the AI or with the API at LinkedIn, and they're doing a great job there. So I'd recommend taking a look at them. Some of these other ones are a little bit more like review and community based, like G2, Software Advice, Capterra. These are folks where you can have them review your product, and you can still get a lot of lead gen because people will raise their hands and say, hey, I'd like to take a look. It's almost a little bit more like inbound. They can be really expensive because you have to pay for getting all the reviews and all that. There's two that aren't on here that I'll mention. One is Clay and one is Cred. Clay kind of pioneered this whole concept of like a waterfall approach where you can build out lists of types of people that you'd like to reach out to. And even though it might not have the data internally, it'll have what's called a waterfall where it checks ZoomInfo, and then it checks Apollo, and then it checks Cognism, and it checks all the competitors. And if you need a lead from any of these sources, it'll charge you some credits. They have like credits, so it's like 10 cents or 50 cents or $1 or whatever, and it'll then fill out your list with all the right people. And they kind of pioneered that. So they have become a really large player in this world. And they do have their own data, but they also have this powerful thing where they can also use other providers' data sources. So that's a really interesting one. They also let you do some really targeted logic. So you can look at people that maybe have taken an action on something, and maybe give them a different message versus versus a different message if they haven't done anything. You can get pretty granular with the filtering. And then the other one that I'll mention is Cred, which I'm working very closely with. I'm obviously biased, so I'm a shareholder and sort of really excited with what they're doing. Cred takes it to a whole other level. They've got a really massive data set of even non-professional things, so they can see audiences in terms of who they follow on socials, whether they like rock music or country music, whether like it's used by advertisers, but it's also used for selling because again, you're trying to get a complete stranger to take a meeting and pay attention to you. And if you can find a way to get in and say, hey, we're doing a rock concert, or hey, we're doing a poker game, like we can go and find all these poker players. Obviously, we're going to sell to them, but they're way more likely to actually engage with us if we got something right about what they really enjoy and what they want to do with their time. Cred also has a number of different things where you can enrich your internal data and stuff like that. So I would recommend taking a look at those two as well. They're not on here, but it's Clay, CLAY. I don't know if it's .com or .io, but they're easy to find. Cred is not as easy to find because it's new, but it's credplatform.com. You can check out Cred Platform. They're great. They really kind of help you get a very, very deep sense of who you're targeting, and then you can the why can be really clear. Like, hey, I'm reaching out to you because you're an alumni of this university, you really like rock music, we're doing a rock concert, we'd love to invite you, or whatever. Like you're really interested in AI innovation around HR. We have an HR platform. Why don't we schedule something to talk to you about it? And so that's kind of basically what you're trying to do with the lead data is get as targeted as humanly possible, because again, you're fighting against them not caring and them ignoring you because they don't know you yet. So that's kind of the lead data. I start with that because I see everything else as like flowing from the lead data that you have. So when you're out selling, you can have other tools. You're obviously going to have a CRM. So that's here at the bottom left. You can use Salesforce if you want, but if you're early, we think it's kind of overkill. It's great. You're going to use it when you're big. You'll get there. No worries. But in the early days, HubSpot's got some really great discounts and deals. They can do everything just as well as Salesforce can at the early stage. There's some other ones as well. There's Sugar CRM. I think they even have a free offering. There's Pipedrive. There's a bunch of other ones. But once you have the lead data and the lists, they need to live in a system where you can actually record what's happening and sort of make sure that the communication is happening properly. And that if there is a deal, you put it in there as a deal, and you can keep track of all your deals, and you can actually forecast and sort of predict the future a little bit in terms of what your sales are going to look like. So that's CRM. If and when you are going to start to do outbound, like sending cold emails, making cold calls, things like that, this world has changed quite a lot. And the big thing is that it used to be the case where you could just set up a whole bunch of emails and send them from your domain. And you might still get a low success rate. It might still be 2 or 5%, whatever. But you could scale that, and you could start to really get some traction and get some meetings. That doesn't really work anymore. So there's a lot of effort now to restrict what works and what doesn't. Like Google, Gmail, Outlook, all the big email sort of servers and providers and stuff like that are getting really good at flagging spam and mass sending and automated everything. So you really have to. We have some tools here: GoDaddy, Mail Toaster. There's a couple of other ones, but what you really have to make sure you're doing for these is it's called domain warming, and you also want to have a couple of different domains that are not your core domain. So you would go and get, like if we're Darwinian, we have like darwinianhq.com. We have Darwinian, like get Darwinian, or Darwinian go to market, or GTM.com, or Darwinian.ai, Darwinian.io. You get variations on your domain. They're called burner domains because, if you screw them up, it's not really going to hurt you that much. And then that's just step one. Step two, that's just as important, is that you have to warm them up. And what that's doing is there's services, Mail Toaster does it. It'll send innocuous emails automatically amongst a bunch of different addresses and make it look like it's all kosher and make it look like it's a regular used domain. So the emails, it's not like you're going from 0 emails to 10,000 to strangers and they're all getting flagged. You can start, it'll just behind the scenes, it'll start warming them and sending, thousands of, hey, how you doing? Kind of like innocuous looking internal emails. And over a few weeks and months, the big services out there that normally would block you start to say, okay, this domain is okay, it's fine. And then you can start ramping up a little bit more volume if you're going to be doing email outbound. This basic tool suite over on the left, this is more internal stuff. Like this is just stuff that you need to function. You should have Slack for internal chat. You should have LinkedIn just for putting your company page up. You should have G Suite or Office 365 for your email management and calendars and all that. You should have Zoom or some kind of a web like based digital meeting space. I think using G Suite now is pretty good. They've actually improved their Google Meet product quite a lot. So if you want to save money, you can just go with that. That's really kind of basic and foundational. And then this bottom right part is these are all AI tools that we know, and many of them we've invested in and we use them very heavily. So Valley is the one that I mentioned. That's the LinkedIn agent that works very well. Mega is a voice AI company. I don't know if they're really quite ready for action yet, but it's going to be really powerful. It'll actually have an AI voice that can do things for you. So it can like make calls and schedule meetings and things like that. Fathom helps you analyze and sort of take action items out of calls and interactions. Potion is an interesting one that we're really close with. They have an AI video tool that allows you to mass personalize a video message. So you can say, hey, Marianne, I'd love to chat further with you about my new tool. And it'll dub out the Marianne and say any other name. So you can send 1,000 different video messages, and each one looks like you actually recorded a video just for that person. So that's Potion. And then Nooks is a great one too. They've got kind of an AI co-pilot type thing. Their core product is actually a dialer. So they have a really great dialer environment where your BD and sales team can make tons of phone calls. It records them. It lets you coach new people that you're hiring. And then they have kind of a co-pilot type thing where it can suggest next actions and sort of take notes and sort of build some intelligence from the calls that you're doing. But that's really a great tool. There's a couple other ones that are not on here that I think are worth mentioning, more around email automation. So you're going to want some basic stuff like an Outreach or SalesLoft, or there's a couple others. I think Apollo used to do this. But basically, you want the ability to, when you have your list of targets, to send emails in a one-on-one type format. So you can say, hey, first name, how you doing? We do this, would love to chat. You're on a very short list. You're very special. Let's get on a demo because you're perfect for what we're building. Whatever text you want to put in there, but it'll send an email and then maybe a week later send a follow-up, and then a week later send a follow-up. And then, it'll just kind of keep on the person's radar over a long period of time. Those are great. Again, there's not a lot of AI in those basic tools. There's some, but those are kind of basic things that you want to use. We are seeing a whole new generation of AI BDR tools, which is worth talking about a little bit. So BDR means business development rep. These are the people that do all the cold contact, cold outreach, calls, emails, all that stuff to try to book meetings and build pipeline. There's a whole world of new tools, and I'll just name a few of them. There's 11x, there's what is it? Alta, there's Landbase, there's a whole bunch of them. What's the other one that's escaping me? What is it? There's a few. They'll come to me. What we found, especially for early companies, the reason they're not even on here is that for brand new companies, they don't really help at all. And we've tried them. We've tried them because for us it would be beautiful if we could just go into a client and say, "Hey, we're going to have this AI guy go and book a bunch of pipeline for you." Like our jobs would be delightfully easy. What we found is that they really only work for companies that already have product market fit. And I don't mean like 1 million in ARR. I mean like 10 million plus, like enterprise companies. Like they work with Fortune 500 companies and private equity owned, like scaled businesses that have a couple 100 million in ARR. When you have like really tight repeatability around who you're reaching out to and why, the AI tools are helpful because you're doing essentially the same thing across tens of thousands of recipients. And they probably already have big BDR teams of 50 or 100 people that are out there booking meetings and everything. And they help there. But I really don't encourage early companies to use those. We've tried all of them, and they really don't work because if you remember back when I was talking about the chapters to get to 1 million, the biggest and most difficult thing in getting to 1 million is that you're pathfinding and you're experimenting and you're failing like 95% of the time. And that's just part of it. Like you're out there and it's not working, you got to pivot, it's not working, you got to pivot. You might want to try multiple things in parallel. If you have an AI tool, it's not worth the setup time because you're going to just still be retooling it constantly. And you might as well just do that yourself. The AI tools really are more for when you're at scale and you're moving. So I didn't really put them here intentionally. They're not. The marketing stuff will have you believe that you can just have some AI thing that'll go and book you a bunch of customers. We have not seen that, and we've really tried, and we've tried different tools. We're even investors in some of them because hopefully eventually they'll crack it, but it's not working. The other thing that I'll comment here, just on tooling, is as you guys know, I'm sure you all have used ChatGPT and Grok and Lutra and any of these other AI tools. It's very easy to spit out text now. So anything that's based on written text, even LinkedIn, every like emails, LinkedIn, any messaging, anything that's like written text is so easy to do now that it's pretty flooded. And even if you have the best tools and best lists and best everything, it's very easy to just send out a whole bunch of written things because AI can do it for you, and it can even customize for everyone, and it can do all the personalization way better than before and all that. What we've found, and this is the most low-tech thing ever, we found that the humble phone call is now coming back into prevalence, because it shows people that you're a real person and it gives you the ability to really connect with folks properly. So, but it's really depressing, and most people hate it because it's no fun. Like you're hearing no all the time. You feel kind of awkward making cold calls to people that don't want to hear from you. But we find that if you're doing everything else right and you're sending them emails and you have marketing material, your website looks good, you have a good LinkedIn presence, you're commenting and posting, everything else is good. If you just make some phone calls to the people that you're trying to reach out to, you might not get anything on the phone call, but if you leave voicemail or send them a text or whatever, they're way more likely to then respond to something else or schedule something on the phone or something like that. So we've seen this kind of back to basics movement in the last year or so, where just cutting through the noise and seeing if someone will answer your call or listen to your voicemail can really help you get some things booked. And then for calling, there's a bunch of tools that will help you do it a little more efficiently. Like Nooks, for example, lets you make a lot of calls in parallel. Most of the other tools have built-in calling now. So HubSpot, you can click a button, make a phone call. SalesLoft and Outreach, you can click a button, make a phone call. There's a whole bunch of great stuff there. But I would encourage people to go low tech in the early days. So in the early days, do the planning and the experimenting and the execution low tech manually. But just have some faith that as you start to see some things work, you can then start to go a little bit deeper into AI and have other things work. Now, there's still parts of even the low tech stuff where AI can make it faster and better. So you can use AI to get better lists built. You can use AI to figure out some scoring in terms of maybe who's most likely to convert. You can use AI to make things more efficient. So you can, write your copy using AI. There's no problem with that. You can use AI to generate some images for your LinkedIn posts. You can use AI to, make sure that your follow-ups happen and keep track of it all and stuff like that. That's all great, but that's still kind of DIY. Like, you're going to want to actually understand where the AI fits in and manage it and sort of run it all yourself. It's not going to be this thing where you just start clicking things and all of a sudden, boom, you have a bunch of pipeline. Um, so let me kind of pause there for a second. We're at 40 minutes, but let me go through some chat stuff, and hope this is helpful. Let me open this up. Okay, stealth mode, link to Cred. Yes, Cred is great for B2C. It has audience data, so you can do even like, it can help you guide your ad campaigns and things like that. It has all sorts of data on who's advertising to whom, so you can see what ad campaigns are being run to different audiences. I'm happy to, I'll leave my contact information. You can reach out and I can give you a tour of it and like a discount. Let's see what else we got. AI powered chat based data collection. Yep. Yeah. Okay. There's another great tool, Qflow. I mean, I love this sort of cross pollination. I'd love to go check that out. If there's a way to speed up data collection for surveys and whatnot, that's great. Shout out there. Domain warming. Yeah. I have Mail Toaster up here. So that's one. There, I can go and check and see what other ones we've used, but that's the one that we find the most success with. That's a good one. Oh yeah, Mail Toaster, Denny Wong. Thanks for the link. POV on AI SDRs. Yes, I gave it to that. I gave you that little spiel. They're great once you're enterprise, once you're a Fortune 500. Once you're Fortune 500, you all will be wealthy beyond imagination. So remember the little guys, but in the short term, don't worry about AI SDRs. They're expensive. They're not really going to help you very much. And you'll waste a bunch of time and money trying, and then you'll realize that you should have just done it manually. Which is really sad because it's such a beautiful vision. Like, if you could have an AI agent that goes out and books meetings for you, like, hallelujah, that would be amazing. But you have to be realistic, right? Like, you don't even really know where to point the AI. Like, the AI can't go and say, okay, in the entire world of people, who and how and what am I going to do to get them to actually pay attention? And you're going to be doing so much supervision that's not really worth the time and effort. And they're very expensive. They're like $2-3 grand a month, like minimum, and you usually need a couple seats. Like, they're really designed for larger businesses, unfortunately. Yeah, you're gonna spin your wheels in the early stage. Okay, so that's kind of the bulk of the discussion. I would love to, if there's any other questions or thoughts, or if anyone has any experiences with anything, type it in here. But that's really it. I guess the one other thing that I'll say is, just as you evolve from the different chapters on the 0 to 1, you're going to find your needs change. And one example is, as you're larger, the AI BDR outreach stuff is more relevant, right? But you'll find that with other things too. So some tools work when you're earlier. I think the biggest thing though is that when you're earlier, there's no silver bullet. I think that's the biggest comment that I'll make. When you're early and trying to get your first couple customers, there's no AI tool that's going to get you there. And I'm sorry to say that. You can even do it on a spreadsheet. And I hate to say that, but it's true. You can use a spreadsheet, find your first 10, 20 really, really committed customers, go have a bunch of coffees, go to lunches, go meet people, like, get on the phone, try like doing some research, figuring out what they like, and just be really, really personal and conversational and eager to please, and kind of like be the sort of prodigy, play the prodigy role. So go and find some senior folks and really be their prodigy and say, hey, like help me understand what you're doing, and I'd like to be helpful to you. It almost feels like consulting or professional services for the first couple customers, because it's not like a SaaS tool usually where you can just throw them over the line and they're done, and then you don't need to talk to them again. They'll just use your tool. Usually the first couple years and the first couple dozen customers, you're talking to them constantly. You're solving problems with them. You're building bugs as they see them. Like, they're usually the ones finding where the problems are in the bugs and stuff like that. So I'm going to just say right off the bat, if you're trying to get to your first 100K or 200K, there's no tool that's going to really make that easier. You have to just go and do it. Maybe when you're in the 300K to a million, you're starting to train some people. Maybe there's some efficiencies. Maybe you can build lists a little better because you know what they're looking for. Then you can start to look at some of the more advanced tools. And don't do the fully automated turnkey AI BDR thing until you're well into the couple million. And even then, you'll find it's pretty low yield. So that's kind of what we're seeing across the portfolio companies that we work with. Oh, here's another question: does it work for B2B and B2C? Yeah, I mean, B2C is a different. B2C is usually. So I don't think of it when I think of go to market. I mean, B2B, B2C is one way to look at it. I actually look at it more around deal size. So a company that's selling a product that's, call it 5K or 10K and above, you're going to have to speak to people, demo. There might be a contract with some red lines, maybe some back and forth. There's going to be a little bit of nuance to that sale. So you're going to have to do manual dialogue and conversations and hand-holding and get stuff done. For products that are cheaper, even if they're B2B, if you're selling a $20 subscription or $100 subscription or something like that, even if it's B2B, it might feel a little bit more like B2C because you're just getting some individual to make a decision and put down their credit card, which is kind of B2C. B2C, you go to the grocery store, you choose one type of cereal and you just buy it. It's not like you're doing a demo and getting an explanation of the types of cereal, and then you have to go and take it to your CFO and go to procurement and redline a contract and negotiate the price. You just decided to buy cereal because you like the colors. Boom, got it. If you're B2B, but it's a smaller deal size, it's kind of the same process. Like you're just trying to get someone to read your website, like what they see, and put it on their credit card and buy it. So it's a different motion. Usually the stuff that we work on is higher deal size B2B only. And it's for that reason. Like, it's a different type of psychology. When you're trying to get just an individual to make a decision for a lower dollar amount thing, that's either low dollar B2B or B2C in general, because usually B2C, there's not a lot of items that are that expensive in B2C. Usually it's consumer packaged goods or experience or electronics or something like that. But even then, like, think about it. If you're a B2C, but it's a very large dollar amount, like you're buying a car, you still have to look at the legal contract. You have to go to your wife or your husband and get them bought in, and you have to go and get insurance. So it's still kind of like a multi-party process to get a larger ticket B2C item, which looks a little bit more like an enterprise or B2B sale. So I think of it more along those lines. And if you're targeting wealth management and they have compliance, you just have to build that into the whole thing. I mean, that's normal. We've sold to wealth management and compliance. It's just another constraint that your buyer has, and you can target based on that. You can look for folks that have compliance needs and say, hey, we solve these compliance needs. We'd love to talk to you because we do this and that. It just turns into part of how you're targeting and how you're talking to and how you're negotiating and how you're closing deals with folks. If they have, compliance, or if they have any constraints around, whatever it is that they're doing. Any other thoughts, questions, comments, war stories? Anything else I can help illuminate?